guys, how are you doing? We are so excited to share with you everything the Lord has been doing in our lives and to get you up to speed on the transition that is coming in our lives. So just to refresh you guys, we have been here in Kansas City on staff at the International House of Prayer for the past 6.5 years. The Lord marked our lives in 2009. We met then, and we both were fresh and new believers, new here in Kansas City, and the Lord marked both of our lives. And so we have been on staff here literally for the past 6.5 years. For about 6 of that 6.5 years, I have helped lead different things for all of our evangelism efforts at IHOP and the evangelism department. And we've just been laboring to see the lost saved in Kansas City, fasting and prayer, all of those things. And in 2015, in the beginning of 2015 in January, a lot of things began to shift in our lives, and it all started on the Lord asking me to do a 21-day fast. That 21-day fast really kind of imparted a whole new thing on my life in the area of believing God for revival and contending for it through fasting and prayer, because I always had the evangelism piece, I always had the signs and wonders piece going out in the doing, but this fast we did in January really kind of propelled us into this fasting and praying for revival, and it just really gave me a fresh hope, because we've heard people talk about revival for so long, but it was kind of finally became real to me. And so all year we began to burn for revival all of last year, and the Lord called me into another 21-day fast in September of 2015 that really brought about this everything we're about to talk to you guys about. So in September, I knew that the Lord kind of touched me with a grace to begin another fast. I didn't know how long we were going for, but I knew it was kind of like there's grace to do whatever you're feeling. And so 1 day turned to 3 days, and 3 turned to 7. And at about day 7 of this fast, I was just digging through revival history, studying through all kinds of different things the Lord has done from the 1700s all the way even up to, the 70s, the Jesus People movement, different things. But there was one story that I kept reading that was marking my life more than any of them all, and it was 1857. In New York City, there was a man named Jeremiah Lamphere who is a missionary to the city, and he was going out preaching the gospel every day, handing out tracts, going door to door, and he got frustrated because his fruit in New York City wasn't what he wanted it to be. And so the Lord asked this guy to start a noon prayer meeting, which, long story short, resulted in the Holy Spirit falling in New York City, and 1 million were saved in 1 year. And I just began to burn for this, not to mention, those of you who know us and follow our lives, we've been a part of the Love Your City movement. So, we did Love New York, we did Love LA, Love Minneapolis, and so I'm on this fast. And on about day 7 of the fast, remember this is September 2015, we're gearing up to be doing 24/7 prayer with 24/7 evangelism in New York City. And I realized at about day 7 of this fast, while I'm burning for this 1857 revival history, I realized that this 21-day fast is for New York City. And so I just continue out this fast. And so something that happened during this September through October 21-day fast was my wife had a dream about New York City that we didn't realize was as significant as we realize today. And so share that dream, honey.
Yeah, so I had a dream that me and my husband were flying in an airplane over the Hudson River that separates from the Brooklyn side to New York. And we were flying over, and we were just having a conversation about the city and about moving there. And I knew in the dream, I just had this knowing that we were going to be moving there, and it was going to be for 2 years.
Yeah, so my wife has that dream, but you know how it goes, that was the first real prophetic thing that we had for New York City, so we were kind of like, oh, whatever, but there was definitely this like small mustard seed, growing in us towards New York, and so I ended up going to New York City for just a quick overnight thing to help speak and get people prepared for Love New York, but then when Love New York actually came around in November, I went for 7 days, and something that has never happened in my 6 years. I've been, not 6 years, I've been traveling a lot for the past about 3.5 to 4 years, traveling all over the nation. So it's not like I was a kid excited about being in a new city. I traveled a lot, and I'd already been to New York City 2 other times in 2015. But something happened to me that's never happened in all of my years of traveling. Something hit my heart, and I began to fall in love with New York City like never before. It was wild. I'm talking about not even just excited about what God's doing in New York City, but just even the culture of New York City, the people of New York City, everything about the city. And I can remember texting my wife saying, honey, I miss you guys, but there's something going on in my heart and I don't even want to go home. And God did amazing things during Love New York. I mean, for sure. I mean, we had a transgender man in Brooklyn get saved and set free and repent of his lifestyle. I mean, a guy who's been living as a woman for years. So, I mean, there's all of those amazing things that were happening. But I was like, wow, something is happening in my heart for New York City. And so, my wife's in Kansas City, so she's like, awesome, Josh. I'm here, you're there. I'm not necessarily feeling what you're feeling,
Yeah.
And so I come back to Kansas City, and this is like in November of 2015, mid-November, and I just said, honey, I think we're going to go to New York City for a month. I just kind of said it in faith. And you were like, what was your response when I said that?
Yeah, I was just kind of thrown off guard, like, no, that's not going to work with our children. We've never done anything like this. Why? But then remembering, the text that I would get from him during Love New York about, I just really feel something about the city. I'm really getting connected with my heart, and I miss you guys, but I don't want to come home. And so I finally just kind of put aside all of my that doesn't sound good, that will be horrible, this too much emotion of it, and just realized maybe this is something the Lord wants to invite our family into, and maybe something greater is going to come of it.
Yeah, and so we just kind of kept saying it over and over and over again. We're telling people, we're going to go to New York City in the spring for a month. We're just kind of saying it in faith, though, We're going to New York City. So December rolls around, and I end up calling the directors of the Justice House of Prayer in New York, who we really felt connected with, said, hey, we really think we're supposed to come to New York City for a month. And they're like, well, sweet, stay at our house, So that was kind of a first, like, okay, sweet, we got a place to stay,
Right.
But still just this reality of like, I mean, it costs a lot of money to be in New York City for a month, but we just keep saying it in faith, saying it in faith, saying it in faith. Well, then what happens is February rolls around, like in the very, very beginning of February, and I kind of realized, shoot, we have 1 month to do this New York thing, and we don't have any money, So I'm kind of like, writing down numbers, kind of just budgeting it out in my head, and I'm like, we need $3,000 at the minimum to do this, And so I remember though, this was just in the beginning of February. I just had no grace. I remember saying to my wife, honey, I just don't have the grace to raise this money. Like, I just don't feel like doing the big fundraiser and all this stuff. Like, I don't know what the deal is, But we just do what we do, and we make the video anyways, and upload the video to YouTube and put it on my website. And the next morning, I'm sitting down and I'm about to start texting some people that have, partnered with us in the past, that believe in us, to say, hey, we need you to sow into this New York thing. And I'm just sending out these links to the video, and I'm just like, gosh, I'm not feeling this. And right as I'm feeling that, a friend of mine who's a kind of a newer friend in my life, an older gentleman, he calls me and he texts me and says, hey, we haven't talked in a while, let's catch up. So long story short, I call this guy, we're catching up, and he brings up the fact that, I had told him in months past that we were going to go to New York for a month. And so this guy's just like, so what do you need to do this? And I said, well, we need $3,000. And he's like, well, and I've never, ever asked this guy for money in my life, and I never had planned to. And he goes, you have better things to worry about than raising money. So here, I'll send you the check in the mail today. Mm-hmm. And this guy actually ended up sending us $500 on top of that, $3,500. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this has never happened before. I mean, we have grace to raise money, but it always comes through an effort of people, which is amazing, and we're thankful for it. But for one person to just come alongside of us and lift the load and say, here's the check, we were like, wow, God, you're really there's something on this thing with New York. Yeah. And then this small mustard seed inside of us kept growing and growing and growing. And this idea is coming into our mind of, could we be moving to New York City?
Right.
And so then preparing to get ready, in the month of February, preparing to get ready for New York, this random thing happens with our housing situation in Kansas City. And so just share what happened.
Yeah, so just a long series of events. Our landlords who we had been renting from for the last 4.5, 5 years decided to come to Kansas City. They had lived out of state, come to Kansas City and fix up the house, and they're going to put it for sale. And we had already, said in our heart that we were okay with moving on as well. So it was a mutual agreement. But so we had that going on 2 weeks out from our New York trip of, okay, when when we come back from New York, we're going to have to pack up and move somewhere. And so in the natural, things were kind of just even lining up, as well as the spiritual side of things, with getting dreams and prophetic things, just hunches of like, maybe this is the Lord, that we're actually going to transition and move here.
Right. Because it's like, what are the likes of us going to New York City for 3 weeks, but our hands are tied behind our backs because we're in New York, so we can't look at houses in Kansas City because we're in New York. But then when we get back from New York, we got to move out of our house within a few weeks. So we're kind of like, interesting, Lord, what are you doing? Yeah. So long story short, we fly to New York City March 2nd. And right before we leave town, my wife's friend has a dream.
Yeah.
Share the dream.
Yeah. So my friend texts me. She said, I had a dream about you last night. This might be really random to you, but in the dream, you were pregnant. And I asked you when your due date was. And you said March 8th. And so when I got that text from her, I would just remember being like, okay, Lord, something is going to happen on March 8th. Now, keep in mind, we were flying out to New York on March 2nd. Right. And so we just kind of kept that date in the back of our mind while we were there. And so we flew there. And
yeah, so I mean, going to New York, we didn't really, it was one of those things where the Lord told us to go, but we didn't have like a super, like, here's what we're doing. Right. I mean, I had preaching engagements on the weekends, but really it was just, we're going to be in the prayer room praying for New York City, because the Justice House of Prayer is right in the financial district of New York City. So it's about a block from Wall Street, just out about 3 or 4 blocks down from the World Trade Center, or well, the One World Trade Center now. And so we just plan to go down there every day, pray for revival in the city. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of trying to tap into this 1857 thing, because we did another 21-day fast in the beginning of this year, and God's just got us on this thing with long distance fasting for revival. And so long story short, March 8th comes around and nothing happens. We're thinking something crazy is going to happen on March 8th,
Yeah.
Nothing happens, but something happens on March 10th, 2 days later.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Then I get another text from a friend. She had said, hey, I had a dream about you guys a couple nights ago.
We love dreams.
We totally love dreams.
In case you haven't noticed, God speaks to us through dreams in such a powerful way. He always confirms them in the natural, but our lives have been so marked by dreams. We're both extreme prophetic dreamers. We just have a gift on our life for it. I mean, I take a nap and I have a dream, And so the Lord has really used dreaming, and it's biblical. I mean, I don't need to give you a teaching on why dreams, but so just so you guys, as you're hearing these stories, a lot of it is dreams, but that's one of the biggest ways the Lord has spoke to us, but then he confirms it in the natural. So March 10th.
Yeah, so she texts me, I had a dream about you guys a couple nights ago. I forgot to share it with you. After I get out of work, I'm going to text it to you. So long story short, she texts me the dream. And she says, so in the dream, my friends are coming to New York to stay with you guys. And I decide to stay back and not come. She says, I'm scrolling on Facebook and I see this video that's posted by Sean Foyt. And do you want to excerpt there?
If you don't know who Sean Foyt is a very famous worship leader out of Pennsylvania, travels all over the world. He's travels with Heidi Baker. He's amazing. He's got long blonde hair. You've probably seen him before. He's the founder of the Burn 24/7 movement. So many amazing things. But so in the dream, she's scrolling through Facebook and she sees a post from Sean Foyt on Facebook.
Right. And it's a video, and the title of the video is Little Boy Asks to Pray for Man and Revival Breaks Out. So she clicks on the video and she sees all these people that have gathered on the streets and they're praising while Josh is preaching.
In New York City.
And it all started because Nehemiah had asked to pray for somebody. They got healed and a handful of people witnessed it, and the Spirit fell. People started speaking in tongues. Josh starts proclaiming the gospel, and people, just ones and twos, until it's 100 or 200 people, she said, that have now gathered and crowded around, and they're all praising while they're hearing the true gospel for the first time. Yeah. So she sends me that dream, and she says, oh, and by the way, I had this dream on March 8th.
And what's amazing about the dream, not even necessarily that it was on, March 8th, obviously that you guys are probably going, oh my gosh, it was on March 8th, but what's crazy is in real life, so outside of the dream realm, in real life, my son Nehemiah, he's 4 years old. All he's ever watched us do is when we're at the mall, when we're at the grocery store, we pray for the sick. Right. And so actually where we're at right now in life, my son in the natural, in real life, is actually our accountability partner for evangelism. Because there is not a sick person, a person limping, a cane, a crutch, a cast. He sees it and he says, Dad, we have to go pray for them. Right. So the fact that in the dream, because literally a lot of times I'm dull, I'm grocery shopping, not paying attention, and Nehemiah is pointing out the people we got to go pray for. So in the dream, it was Nehemiah
Yeah.
that saw the person we were supposed to pray for, which is just so how it would be in real life.
Right.
You know? So we're like, oh my gosh, she had the dream on March 8th. And we're kind of freaking out. We're like, oh my gosh, Lord, you're really writing this story, you know? And so this happened when we got this dream. We were actually down in New York City because there was a conference going on at J-Hop, and some of our friends were there. And there was a very well-known prophetic voice in the body of Christ. He's very well-known. He's very prophetic. He comes to me a little bit after we got that dream, maybe a couple hours later, because we were leaving New York to go to New Jersey for 2 days, and he's kind of saying his goodbye to me. And he says, you gotta think about moving to New York City. And I'm kind of like, okay, and he's just picking up on it in the prophetic. And he says, Josh, he said, every Daniel needs his Babylon. Every Daniel needs his Babylon. And he goes, Kansas is not a Babylon to you. I think New York City would be. And so we're just like, wow, God, you're really writing this story. And so obviously, this is happening. We're having dreams in New York City about living in New York City. So let's fast forward to here we are right now, because we just got home a week and a half ago from New York. Since we've been home, this is huge. Moving to New York City is, we're leaving everything. There's no harder city that we could live in, than New York City. It's just having to throw away everything for him. And so we've had 2 more prophetic confirmations. Just 2 days ago, Landry has a thought. And what was the thought about our spiritual mom?
Yeah, so when all this was kind of swirling in New York, I had thought of our spiritual mom here in Kansas City. And I was thinking to myself, if this is the Lord and we are to come, my spiritual mom would have already picked up on this. The Lord would have told her already and prepared her. So then fast forward, we come back to Kansas City. Just a couple days ago, we went on a getaway together, just me and Josh. My parents took the kids, and we just kind of got to reconnect after, and just kind of process everything that happened over the last 2 weeks. And we get a call from our spiritual mom, and she says, I've heard a rumor, and I want to make sure that it's true, and I'd like to sit down and talk to you guys. Well, then she goes on to talk about how the Lord had already told her back in January that there was an assignment in New York City that had our names on it. And so that was just another confirmation. Yeah. And it was exactly what I had in my heart of, she will have already been told by the Lord that this is him, if this is what we are to do. And
it literally, guys, has been like this every single day.
Yeah.
People walking up to us, hey, are you moving? I feel like you're supposed to move to New York. It's just been insane. And so that's enough prophetic, obviously. And so what are we going to be doing in New York City?
Yeah.
I can tell you half of what we'll be doing in New York City, because we're really trying to just go there in faith and say, God, here we are. We're going to really help J-Hop. They don't really have necessarily anybody that is on full-time staff. Most of their staff also work. We're going to really help build this prayer room. We're really going to help them get more hours in the prayer room and really just begin to get more and more people laboring for God to send revival through fasting and prayer in the city. I'm going to be doing tons of evangelism, equipping, and training. We're going to be raising up people in Wall Street that are going to witness the gospel as a lifestyle in their workplace. So we're really going to be targeting Wall Street in the financial district mostly, and just really going to be equipping 9-to-5 workmen who work on Wall Street, men and women, and we're going to be equipping them to take this thing as a lifestyle and begin to flood Wall Street with the gospel in a very practical lifestyle way. And so we need your guys' help.
Yeah.
If those of you guys who know New York City or know anything about New York City, there is probably no more expensive place in America to live in than New York City. Yeah. And so we really, really need your help. It is, triple the income it takes to do this. And what we need, guys, numbers-wise, is $50,000. I know that's a lot of money. We need $50,000 to be able to make this happen. We really need to move there by the middle of May. So we got about a month to raise $50,000. What is $50,000 going to do? $50,000 is going to pay for our apartment for the whole year. We're taking this assignment a year at a time. We need $50,000 to pay for our apartment and also just give us a little bit of extra money to live for the year in New York City. So if you believe in us, if you guys have followed our lives, followed our ministry, followed our family, and you believe in us, we need you guys to help us. Share this video with your friends. Talk to your friends and family. Talk to your church, whatever, because $50,000 is way beyond anything we've ever had to do before. Yeah. And we just know this is the Lord, and we'll obviously be talking with more of you guys on a one-on-one level, over the phone, in person, sharing even more of the story than what you got to hear just now. But please pray about sowing into this, and we're just excited to see what God's going to do in New York City as we transition there as a family and just sell it all for Jesus to be glorified in New York City. So bless you guys, and thanks for watching.